remember the first time I saw him as if it were yesterday. It was a warm afternoon, the kind where sunlight spills in through every crack, painting golden patches on the pavement. I was sitting alone on a cafe bench, my notebook balanced on my knees, doodling thoughts I never planned to share. And then he walked by. He wasn't just someone walking down the street, he carried an energy that demanded attention, not in a loud way, but in a subtle, almost magnetic pull. Our eyes met for a brief second, and I felt a shiver, like recognition without knowing why. He smiled, a slow, knowing smile that felt like it had been reserved just for me. My heart skipped. I quickly looked down at my notebook, pretending to be absorbed, but my mind was racing. He came closer and, before I could think twice, said something simple but disarming, "Mind if I sit?" That day began a dance I hadn't known I was waiting for. He asked questions about the little things, my favorite coffee, the book I was writing notes on, the way my fingers traced patterns on the page when I was deep in thought. His interest felt so rare, so attentive, that I forgot to be cautious. He remembered everything. The way my hair curled slightly at the nape of my neck. The tiny scar on my thumb from when I burned it as a kid. It was uncanny, almost magical, how perfectly he noticed me. Within days, he was texting me, calling me, leaving notes that made me laugh and sometimes, inexplicably, cry. He loved me in the ways I had imagined only in my daydreams. Every compliment, every gesture, every gentle tease, filled corners of my heart I didn't know were hollow. I was quick to attach to him because, finally, someone was giving me the attention, care, and affection I had craved for so long, attention I hadn't fully received from my parents, from anyone. And I was blind to the warning signs. The slight dismissals, the unexplained absences, they all faded in the warmth of how he made me feel. I told myself he was perfect. I wanted him to be perfect. At first, everything felt like a dream. We'd spend hours walking in the park, talking about books, music, life. I remember one evening under the soft glow of streetlights, he took my hand and said, "I've never met anyone like you. You feel like home." And in that moment, I believed him. I believed every word. I believed that my heart had finally found a safe harbor. But as the days turned into weeks, the subtle cracks began to show. I started noticing the way his phone buzzed a little too often. The hurried smiles when he mentioned certain names, the way he'd quickly change the subject if I asked too much. My heart told me to look away, to pretend everything was fine. I did. I wanted so badly to preserve the illusion of perfection. Then came the whispers of truth, the small moments I couldn't ignore. A message from a friend about seeing him with another girl at a cafe. A photo sent by someone else, smiling, leaning close to him. He laughed it off when I asked, said they were just friends. And I wanted to believe him so badly that I convinced myself it was true. After all, who could be as perfect as he appeared, if not for me? But life has a way of unraveling illusions. One evening, someone arrived unannounced, a girl I had met before, someone he had introduced to me as his cousin. The warmth in her smile froze me, and then I saw it. Her rounded belly, unmistakable, undeniable. I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. My chest felt as though it were collapsing under the weight of betrayal and disbelief. She was carrying his child. Everything that had felt safe, everything that had felt like love, crumbled around me in that instant. I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake him until he admitted the truth, but I didn't. I just walked away, each step heavier than the last, the echo of my own heartbreak ringing louder than any words could. And yet, even in the darkness, a tiny flicker of clarity began to glow. As I sat alone in my apartment that night, tracing my fingers over the scars and memories I had carried silently for years, I realized something that shook me even deeper than his betrayal. I hadn't truly loved him, not the man, not fully. I had loved the way he made me feel. I had clung to him because he filled the empty spaces inside me, the spaces I had never tried to heal. The realization was both painful and liberating. I was angry, yes, but I was also waking up to a truth I had avoided for too long. I had chased affection like a lifeline, confused attachment for love, and in the process, lost myself a little. I don't know yet where this journey will lead. But I do know one thing. I am beginning to understand that healing isn't about forgetting him. It isn't about blaming him. It's about learning to fill the voids inside myself first, so that one day, I can love not out of need, but out of choice. The first few days after I left were the hardest. My apartment, once my sanctuary, felt like a silent prison. Every corner held memories of him, his jacket draped over a chair, the empty coffee mug he left behind, the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air. I tried to throw myself into work, into errands, into anything that would keep my mind from unraveling, but grief has a way of creeping into the quietest moments. I spent hours staring out of the window, watching the world go on while I felt frozen in place. And then, in the middle of that suffocating stillness, a strange thought came. Maybe this isn't just heartbreak. Maybe this is an opportunity to find myself. I started small. Morning walks in the park, just me and the wind brushing against my face. I carried a notebook with me, scribbling not about him, not about what I had lost, but about what I wanted, what I felt, and what I feared. Slowly, I began to notice patterns I had ignored for years, how I craved validation in ways that left me vulnerable, how I ignored red flags because I was afraid of being alone, how attachment had disguised itself as love. One afternoon, I sat on a bench under a sprawling oak tree, the leaves rustling softly above me. A mother and her child passed by, laughing, their joy simple and unforced. I realized that for so long, I had sought someone to recreate a childhood I never fully had, the attention, the warmth, the unconditional care. He had been a placeholder for those unhealed wounds, and I had mistaken his presence for love. Tears flowed freely, not just for him, but for myself, for the little girl I had once been, for the parts of me that had always wanted to be seen, held, and understood. I whispered to myself, it's time to stop looking outside for what only you can give yourself. Days turned into weeks, and each day I claimed a little more space for myself. I started cooking meals just for me, learning to enjoy the ritual rather than the expectation. I called friends I had neglected, letting laughter and conversation fill the quiet emptiness. I even picked up old hobbies, painting, journaling, music, small acts that reminded me that I could create joy on my own. And then something remarkable happened. One evening, as I curled up with a cup of tea and my notebook, I realized I hadn't thought about him in hours. Not with anger, not with longing. Just stillness. And in that stillness, I felt a flicker of freedom. I understood, finally, that love isn't about someone making you feel complete. It's about feeling complete on your own and choosing to share that wholeness with someone else. I laughed quietly to myself, a soft, almost shy sound, because the truth was, I had never truly loved him, not fully. I had loved the way he filled the empty spaces inside me. I had loved the illusion of perfection he presented. And that realization, as painful as it was, felt like the first real breath I had taken in years. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know when I would open my heart to someone else again. But for the first time, I felt like I could wait, not out of fear of being alone, but because I had learned to be enough for myself. And somewhere deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. Healing isn't linear. There will be days when old memories sting, when attachment tries to creep back in. But now, I have the tools, the awareness, and the courage to face it head-on. I looked out at the city lights flickering in the distance, a soft wind brushing my cheeks, and whispered to myself, one day, I will love again. My healing wasn't something that happened overnight. It was messy, uneven, and at times, painfully slow. I started by setting boundaries with my thoughts and my environment. I began journaling daily, not just about what had happened, but about how I truly felt in the moment. And therapy became a lifeline. Months passed, and I noticed a change. I laughed more freely, I slept more peacefully, and I no longer feared solitude. Being alone became a gift instead of a punishment. I began to understand that real love doesn't demand perfection from anyone. It thrives in mutual respect, trust, and emotional safety. It was during this period of self-discovery that I met someone new. He wasn't perfect, and I didn't expect him to be. What drew me to him was his kindness, his consistency, and the way he respected my boundaries. Our connection grew slowly, built on honesty and mutual care. I didn't rush, I observed, I listened, I communicated. For the first time, I experienced what a healthy relationship truly feels like.